On February 28, 2022, a terminal hydraulic surge overtopped Lismore's 10-meter levee by more than 4 vertical meters, initiating a $1 billion recovery gamble. This unprecedented disaster rendered historical modeling obsolete, forcing a total strategic redesign of the city's civil defenses. Can a region trapped in a natural geomorphological funnel truly engineer its way out of extinction? To appreciate the mechanical magnitude of this high-stakes bet, we have to analyze the geomorphological trap that defines this region. Lismore sits at a precarious hydraulic junction where the Wilsons River and Leicester Creek converge, draining a massive volcanic plateau of high-elevation ranges. Geographically, the city is the neck of a funnel, with an average annual rainfall of 1,800 millimeters, triple the Australian national average. The concentration time for runoff is exceptionally short, leading to rapid onset inundations that bypass standard regional flood frequency analysis. For decades, the benchmark for safety was the 1974 flood, which peaked at 12.15 meters. When the 10-meter urban levee was completed in 2005, it was engineered for a 1-in-10-year event, based on the assumption that the river would not frequently exceed those specific parameters. However, the 14.4-meter surge of 2022 proved that the 1% annual exceedance probability models were significantly underestimating the catchment's upper hydraulic potential. This statistical anomaly caused over $350 million in damage to council assets, including the total destruction of 90% of the road network. The velocity of the flow, coupled with prolonged saturation, triggered a cascade of geotechnical failures. But how do you stabilize a city that is being systematically undercut by its own river system? The answer lies in the most technically demanding component of the recovery, the landslip restoration package. This 60-site remediation program is a masterclass in geotechnical stabilization, moving beyond simple repairs to address slope instability at the structural level. At Stony Chute Road, the scale of material movement is staggering. Engineers required 20,000 tons of rock and road base to stabilize a single landslip near the Zouch Road intersection. To put that into perspective, that is a mass equivalent to approximately 2 Eiffel Towers, all strategically placed to provide a solid foundation for a new road surface that must now resist the hydrostatic pressures of a fully saturated embankment. On Nimbin Road, the failure was even more acute, necessitating a complex micro-piling solution across 2 major sites. The geotechnical team had to address slope instability that threatened to sever the primary transport link to the Byron Bay hinterland. The solution involved the installation of 500 micropiles, which were drilled into the subsurface to depths of 14 to 15 meters to reach competent bedrock. These micropiles are not just simple supports, they are high-performance structural elements designed to transfer the lateral earth pressures of the failing slope into the stable underlying strata. The retaining wall itself is a gravity-based system consisting of 700 concrete blocks, forming a 160-meter-long structure. For the engineers watching, the use of 40 megapascal concrete in these blocks is a deliberate choice to ensure durability against sulfate attack from groundwater and the mechanical wear of future overtopping events. As we move further into the hinterland, the stabilization techniques become even more invasive. At Kawangla Road and Terania Creek, teams are executing an extensive soil nailing program. This involves drilling steel tendons into the slip face and grouting them in place, effectively creating a reinforced soil mass that behaves as a single coherent unit against gravitational shear. Have you ever seen a slope held together by thousands of kilonewtons of internal tension? This is the reality of Lismore's hinterland recovery. But while the roads are being anchored to the bedrock, how does the city manage the millions of liters of stormwater still trapped behind its walls? The city's internal drainage is undergoing a $29.8 million modernization of its hydraulic lungs. The network of flood pump stations, the legacy system, much of which dated back to the 1960s and 70s, proved insufficient during the 2022 event because the pumps lacked the capacity to handle high-intensity rainfall that occurs when the levee gates are closed. The Browns Creek pump station is the focal point of this upgrade. Currently, the station utilizes 2 original pumps from the 1960s, but the new design calls for a total overhaul. A new station is being constructed adjacent to the existing facility to house 4 powerful submersible pumps. When completed, these units will deliver 4 to 5 times the pumping power of the old system. a critical requirement for a basin that receives more than 5 millimeters of rain per hour during major cells. The engineering team is not just increasing raw power, they are building in resilience by raising all electrical switchgear and control systems above the 14.4-meter flood level. Furthermore, mechanical trash screens are being integrated into the inlets to protect the pump impellers from the massive amount of debris, from timber logs to urban refuse, that historically crippled the stations during peak flow. The intelligence of these stations is being revolutionized by the Fiber Connect project, which has deployed a 10-kilometer fiber optic network across the city's pump infrastructure. This network enables a sophisticated supervisory control and data acquisition system using PAC 334 ERTU controllers. This allows the council's engineering team to monitor flow rates, vibration sensors, and pump status in real time, with the ability to remotely activate the system from a secure command center. This shift from manual to digital control reduces the response time from hours to seconds. But can a fiber optic cable really stop the Wilson's River when it decides to rise 5 meters in a single evening? If the pumps are the lungs of the city, the bridges are the arterial links. But how do you reinforce a structure that has already suffered flexural cracking? The bridge network in Lismore represents another layer of the spec-heavy recovery. The Branch Creek Bridge on Terrania Creek Road, which officially reopened in early 2025, serves as a model for the new standards. The final bitumen sealing of the approaches was conducted with a focus on long-term saturation resistance, while 90% of the civil works focused on scour protection and abutment reinforcement. For bridges that survived the surge but suffered structural cracking, the flood restoration portfolio is utilizing fiber-reinforced polymer strips. The application of these carbon fiber strips to the underside of deck slabs is a highly technical process. Before the Sika Carbadure plates or similar systems are adhered with epoxy, the concrete substrate must undergo pull-off tests to verify a minimum tensile strength of 1.5 megapascal. This ensures that the bond can successfully transfer the flexural stresses and provide the necessary 30% increase in ultimate load-carrying capacity. The use of carbon fiber reinforced polymer bars in new deck slabs is also being explored to eliminate the risk of steel reinforcement corrosion in the high alkalinity environments of the northern rivers. These aren't just repairs, they are structural upgrades designed to extend the service life of the assets to 100 years, even in a changing climate. Steel reinforcement yield strengths are being standardized at 400 megapascal, while all new concrete pours must hit a 28-day compressive strength of 40 megapascal to meet the B1 exposure classification. This physical reinforcement requires massive energy, but what happens when the grid is literally underwater and the power fails? The recovery gamble extends into Lismore's energy infrastructure with the integration of smart renewable systems. The Clyde Campbell Solar Car Park is a $650,000 project that features an architectural butterfly-shaped awning clad with 224 bifacial solar panels, each rated at 445 watts. Bifacial panels were selected specifically for their ability to capture light hitting the rear face, maximizing efficiency in a subtropical environment where ground-level albedo can be significant. Engineering a solar array for a floodway required precise elevation and structural calculations. All electronic components are positioned at 12.45 meters Australian height datum, providing a 500 mm freeboard above the 1% annual exceedance probability flood level for that specific location. The structure itself is engineered to withstand high-velocity water flows and debris buildup, ensuring that the 75 kilowatt tritium direct current fast chargers can remain operational or be easily removed before a peak event. Yet, during the 2022 flood, the water was 1.45 meters above this elevated design, leading many to question if we are still building for a world that no longer exists. On the outskirts of the city, the East Lismore sewage treatment plant hosts a 100 kilowatt floating solar farm, which at the time of its installation was the largest in Australia. The system uses 1,200 floats and 280 solar modules. To combat the risk of these panels being washed away during a pond overflow, engineers utilized 15 Platypus B6 anchor systems. These anchors were installed both on land and directly from boats, then load-locked and proof-tested for working loads between 10 and 40 kilonewtons. This anchoring system allows the array to rise and fall with the fluctuating water levels of the treatment ponds. providing a self-adjusting, flood-resilient energy source that covers 12% of the facility's annual electricity needs. These individual engineering wins are impressive, but do the numbers behind this $1 billion gamble actually add up for the community? The total value of the flood restoration portfolio exceeds $1 billion, with funding primarily provided through the disaster recovery funding arrangements between the Australian and New South Wales governments. This massive investment is not without its critics. Some industry experts argue that the city is attempting to control the river rather than changing human behavior on the floodplain, especially given the $409 million loss in economic production across 2 financial years. To mitigate future risks, the New South Wales Reconstruction Authority has implemented a voluntary buyback scheme, targeting 1,500 homes that suffered severe damage, effectively depopulating 50 hectares of high-risk land while concentrating development in natural disaster precincts at safer elevations. Planning consultants have recommended raising the flood planning level to the projected 2090 climate change level, which would raise design floor heights by an additional 500 to 600 millimeters across the city. With work on major pump stations like Browns Creek expected to continue through late 2026, the city is in a race against time to complete its mechanical defenses before the next record-breaking event. Is this the blueprint for the future of regional urban centers, or are we just reinforcing a sinking ship? Let us know in comments below. If you found this technical breakdown of Lismore's recovery engineering insightful, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more in-depth reports on major global infrastructure projects. And make sure to turn on notifications so you never miss a deep dive into the world of mega projects. See you in the next one.